David Menzies for Rebel News outside the Ontario Superior Court of Justice in downtown Toronto. And hey, what can I say, folks? Almost 6 years later, the great barbecue rebellion lives on. And by that, I mean the story of Adam Skelly. He was the proprietor of Adamson Barbecue. It was 3 restaurants in the greater Toronto area. He decided to go against the COVID lockdowns. He decided to have the temerity to do what the big boys were doing, you know, like the LCBO and Costco and Walmart, and open his restaurant, employ his staff, and serve very grateful customers. Well, the powers that be didn't like that, not one bit. We were there to cover the 3-day-long Great Barbecue Rebellion, and we were there when the authorities sent in literally all the king's horses and all the king's men. Here, check it out.
And then all hell broke loose. A lot of people here tried to cram themselves into the restaurant.
Stop it.
Shame on these move back. Shame on these police. Look at what they've started now. I love you guys. Move back.
It was absolutely shocking. And what happened? Adam Skelly was fined severely. He was criminally charged, and he was put out of business, meaning that all his staff, well, they lost their jobs too. It was an outrageous and shocking overreach of the state. And that's why I was here all day today. It's day 1 of a 3-day proceeding in which Skelly's lawyer, Ian Perry, is bringing a constitutional challenge against the province of Ontario, the city of Toronto, Toronto's Board of Health, and of course, Medical Officer of Health, Eileen Davila. The filing submitted by Mr. Perry alleges several infringements of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms against Skelly, including his freedom of peaceful assembly and against his arbitrary detention. And in his filing, Perry states the following, quote, "This constitutional challenge is a reckoning with the unchecked exercise of state power that devastated small business owners, silenced peaceful dissent, and trampled core constitutional protections, all without a shed of cognate evidence to justify the destruction," end quote. Mr. Perry began his submissions by throwing to some videos. Some of those videos were by an organization called Hogtown Barbecue, and it depicted the Adamson Barbecue restaurants as bustling eateries. The dining rooms were packed. There were lineups around the building. Many employees gainfully employed, supporting their families, and glowing reviews from the Globe and Mail to Toronto Life. What's not to love? Well, along came COVID, and as I alluded to earlier, it was one law for thee, one law for me. Indeed, if you were a multi-billion multinational company like Costco, you were allowed to remain open. And I specifically mention Costco because, folks, that crackdown by the mounted unit of Adamson Barbecue in Etobicoke, less than 500 meters away was a Costco superstore. And in the department of comparing apples with apples, the food service facility of Costco was open, and people were eating their food indoors in the Costco. Again, one law for me, one law for thee, or as George Carlin used to say, it's a big club and you're not in it. Now, Mr. Perry also opened up by stating that the state used its full machinery to go after Skelly, and the fallout was, in his words, vicious, i.e. criminal charges, the restaurants going into bankruptcy, Mr. Skelly being forced to pay tens of thousands of dollars in costs to the city. And by the way, folks, that doesn't include an outstanding bill. And I'm talking about $187,000 that the city has invoiced Mr. Skelly. What for? Oh, well, that was the policing cost, you see, for that 3-day demonstration at the Etobicoke Adamson barbecue. And what really sticks in my craw about that is, since when do people get invoiced for policing costs? And if that is the new normal here in the city of Toronto, well, we've seen for more than 2 years now the pro-Hamas people doing anything but peaceful protesting, and it has been a cost of millions and millions of dollars to the city in terms of the policing requirement of these reprobates. In fact, in 2024 alone, the cost of policing these pro-Hamas demonstrations to the city of Toronto was $19.5 million. So riddle me this, who with those groups gets that bill? Or would invoicing those people be, culturally insensitive? It's unbelievable, the hypocrisy and the double standards in this city under Mayor Chow and Police Chief Myron Demkew. Also, there was another strategy of Mr. Perry, and that was to simply state, to this day, there is no data that shows a connection between indoor dining and the spread of COVID-19. That hard evidence simply does not exist. In fact, we know that the lion's share of COVID deaths, it was the elderly, many of them in long-term care facilities. These are people that tend not to go out dining in the first place. Also, when Adam Skelly opened that West End Toronto restaurant in November 2020, it wasn't simply an economic play. He was exercising his right to protest, his right to assembly. You see by our footage, there were hundreds of supporters that came out to make the case for easing the lockdowns and letting Adam Skelly earn a living. And Mr. Perry cited a really unusual, I think, Supreme Court decision going back to 2005. It was all about a strip club in downtown Montreal. And Montreal bylaw had fined this strip club because it had a speaker that was sending out amplified music and commentary to passersby on the sidewalk. And this evidently violated a noise bylaw for the city of Montreal, but not so fast, the Supreme said. The Supremes quashed the conviction on the basis that the bylaw infringed the respondents' freedom of expression and that this infringement could not be justified. So in other words, if a strip club can amplify music and commentary out onto the street, then a restaurant can host a gathering of hundreds of supporters. Oh, and by the way, as for the illustrious Dr. Aline Davila, Perry said that when she was crossed, it wasn't a matter of what she said, but it was a matter of what she did not say. For example, she refused to answer questions regarding charter rights and the law. She refused to provide data. She refused to provide documentation regarding the plan to close down Adamson Barbecue. And this is a beauty. She even refused to explain the apparent double standard at play when it came to gatherings involving demonstrators supporting Black Lives Matter. Can you imagine? Like, I guess the virus, it identifies social justice causes as opposed to simply a restaurant reopening, and it will respect those gatherings and not infect anyone. Unbelievable. Well, folks, that was day one here at the courthouse. It's scheduled to run 3 days. I'll be back tomorrow. That's Thursday, bright and early at 10 a.m. to see this proceed and to see what the Crown's argument is too. I'm going to be fascinated to hear those arguments. And I got to tell you, I'm very surprised. Well, in a way, I guess. I didn't identify anyone being here who was a member of the media. And this is a very important case. This is indeed a constitutional challenge. This did make headlines for several days back in 2020. I wonder why the mainstream media has suddenly lost interest in this story. For Rebel News, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies. Hey folks, if you want to see all the reporting regarding Adam Skelly and Adamson's Barbecue, please go to bbqtrial.com. That's bbqtrial.com. We're going to continue to bring you the story because it doesn't look like the rest of the media is interested in it. And by the way, while you're on that website, if you're able to, kindly make a donation so that Rebel News can continue to bring you the other side of the story.